Yo, what is going on, guys? It is your boy Seso here, bringing a video here today, bringing you guys a After Effects tutorial on how to create your own very cool logo flying animation transition screen. What? Okay. So yeah, you guys know like 3 months ago I did this really cool transition screen where it sense it just kind of like cuts through. It's just like, yo, like you just does something like that. So basically, if I didn't find a really cool way to show you guys what I'm be doing in today's video here today, I'm gonna switch from my ending screen to my starting soon screen really quickly. If I click over here, you'll see my logo kind of fly in this middle section here, and it just kind of flips over during that little white screen. It's really cool. Like, I don't know, the white screen part is just, you know, the whole, like, I guess fade away kind of thing could be like literally substituted with like millions of different things. Also, keep in mind, I know my logo is black, and like it's just a white background. It's more or less just for the, I guess, the you know, kind of just my example here. So if you guys want to ever switch out, maybe you have a mask logo, maybe you want to have logo color in your logo, obviously, right? Maybe you want your background to be something different. You can like Google something really cool, like, you know, abstract background, or create your own really cool background and whatnot. So it doesn't have to be black and white, but just for the example here today, that's literally what's gonna be. But yeah, it's really cool. 2 likes on the video equals a secret down below, which will most likely be the, hopefully I just do the After Effects project file, but more or less you guys are gonna find issues because you're probably gonna be missing files. You know what I mean? All I would really have to give you though is my logo, so that's probably not too hard to like find and whatnot. But regardless, yeah, I am sick, so hence the sweater indoors. I am like, I still have like a t-shirt. It's just literally a sweater. I usually wear a shirt. Your boy's wearing a sweater because I'm cold. I don't know what's going on. I've been like sick for like 4 days. It's kind of annoying. But yeah, 2 likes on the video, like see down below, like I said before. But really quickly, little shameless plug here. If you guys did not follow me on Twitter and whatnot, you might not know that my everything pack, which is basically everything on this site right here, selflight.com/SesoHQ, is what I use to kind of give you guys heard me at the end of every video. I'm like, you guys can get some really cool packs. Brush pack, Quantum, font is actually free. Esports pack, there's a lot of stuff that's also like exclusive in a sense that I show you guys and give you guys, like gradients and soon to be lesson videos, just saying, pointing it out there. But yeah, it's the usual price is $30. It's already a steal, and now it's half off just because only until Cyber Monday, so you guys have 2 days just to pick it up. You know, I know it says 1 day here for you guys, but I'm probably gonna extend it for you guys for Monday, just for the sense of my YouTube channel can also get that love. We've already beat the sales that we hit last year. I think we're currently at 70 new people who joined the everything pack, you know, kind of like family, right? So hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I'm gonna stop this intro and let's go and get into this thing. I'm stuttering, whatever. Alright guys, so this little animation thing shouldn't be hard for very many people at all, really, and if you're honestly new to this, it's just probably going to give you guys some little open insight to how, you know, After Effects and whatnot can work. So yeah, let me just go ahead and just make a new composition first. For my new composition, I am using 1920 by 1080. My frame rate is 60. Doesn't really need to be, it can be 30 as well. I mean, it's just going to be a little bit weirder to count in the sense of when you actually put it in as a stinger in OBS and all that cool stuff like that, right? So I'm going to press OK. With this being here, can I like drag it in from this project file, or is it's already there? Okay, I don't know why. I got this. Alright, so I'm gonna drag on my logo here. This is what you guys should be doing as well. If you have a logo, maybe you don't have a logo, maybe you have a text, or maybe you want like a really cool, you can do something really cool as well. You don't have to actually have the whole flying thing be a logo. Maybe it can be like a grenade. I don't know, maybe if you're, I don't know, an FPS gamer or whatnot, you can have like a grenade come up and whatnot. You can have like a bullet come up. You can be creative with it. You don't have to use a logo. I'm thinking about it now. I'm just like, just a freaking good idea. You know what I mean? So doesn't have to be a logo. But for this sense here, of course, this is going to be doing a logo animation fly-in, but take it for, you know, what it is, but also like apply some other things, you know, some other ideas you might have. Now that this is here, I'm going to press P on my keyboard. This gives me the, that was a voice crack. I'm going to press P on my keyboard to bring out the position. It's, you know, if you don't have to do that, you just simply just drop down, right? And you'll see anchor point position right there as well. So I just wanted to say, I just press P just to kind of bring it up really quickly. For the record, if I just right click on my timeline, go to my composition settings, I don't know if I actually showed the duration here. My duration is 2 seconds. So the animation for my logo to fly in would be basically around 1.5 seconds almost. And the last kind of little seconds is just like little white screen that's flying by, right? So I'm gonna keep that on 2 seconds, just so you guys know as well. What I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go to 1 second here, right? And I believe that's what I had before. I want to make sure I kind of had it the same because I had it at 130. Okay, so it was 1.5. I knew it. All right, so for 1.5 seconds. So basically your timeline is going to be, of course, 0 frames all the way to 30 frames, right? But keep in mind this one frame here is basically making 60, kind of just like a nice little way for you guys go to 50 to 60 and whatnot. So don't get too confused with it, because I know it's a little bit harder when you put it into OBS. But I'll give you guys a really quick just explanation how to put it into OBS and whatnot. So we're at 1 second here. I'm gonna go up to the half mark here, because this is of course another full second. So basically 1.5 seconds, right? I'm gonna go right there, and I'm gonna take my position and make sure I keyframe it. So this little stopwatch here is basically a keyframer. Obviously, if you guys were to move it and whatnot, it's like I'm going to do right now. So I'm going to go to the beginning of the actual timeline. So as you guys know, it flew in. So we're going to obviously have to put it outside the canvas. With that being said, of course, that needs to be like below, and then it's just kind of come up kind of thing, right? So I'm going to go ahead and just drag this down. Just like so. I just really clicked on it. I'm holding shift. That way I don't mess around with the orientation. I mean, you can fly it in from here. You can fly it in from the top. You can fly it in from wherever you honestly want. But for me, for this example, I'm going to just fly it in from the bottom. So very simply what happens is, since you keyframe the position, the reason why you keyframe the position in the beginning at 1.5 seconds is simply because we want it to be in that position at the end of the animation, right? So when I go back to here, you can see it's a very simple kind of just like, it's just going to glide in, right? This is without the use of easy ease. If you guys are just watching this video for the first time, haven't been watching my little series with the animation stuff, you guys know we're going to definitely easy ease this, which meaning in that sense here, you saw how really like stagnant and very just, or excuse me, static. It's a very simple animation where it's just nothing really going on. There's no sort of timing, right? So if you guys use easy ease, what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight these two keyframes, the beginning one and the 1.5 seconds. I'm going to right click on this dot here, which is a keyframe, go to keyframe assistance, and go to easy ease. So basically, when you open up your graph editor, if you guys do not actually have your kind of graph looks like this, a lot of people always find it just like super weird, so I always like to say it every single time. Yours is probably going to be at default edit value graph. You want to make sure that yours is edit speed graph. That's the one thing you're just going to probably have to like kind of like fiddle with if you're default and you just opened up After Effects for the first time kind of thing. So what this is basically saying here, from point A to point B, these keyframes that we made in the beginning and 1.5 seconds are basically going to say, hey, you can also alter the timing between when your position is sort of like obviously if I scroll this over, right? So this is the kind of like the middle right here, which is basically the middle of the animation as well, and this is the end of the animation. So I can say, hey, I want this to be a little bit faster, or a little bit slower, excuse me. So from here to here, now the middle of the animation is more toward the end of the animation, right? Or I guess you would say the middle of the sort of like the glide coming up, right? It's more toward the end. So what I like to do is here, I like to push this in a little bit as well. So I just kind of have to push this one in probably like 3 squares or so if you guys want to kind of go off of squares. And then from this point here is basically 2 squares, right? So it's kind of almost 2 squares. So if I want to go back over here and re-render this, you'll see it's a lot more just sort of like fluid. It'll feel just a lot more better. It'll feel just like, kind of slow and then go quickly. It's definitely better than just kind of having this weird step-by-step sort of like animation kind of feel to it. It's just very, you'll definitely get used to easy ease. Easy ease is one of the most kind of like used things for animation, because sometimes, just some things move faster than the other times. You know what I mean? So anyway, after this is done, what you would want to do is, you see this little box here? This is actually a 3D box. This is a 3D layer box, which gives you guys the orientation from like, kind of your X, Y, Z axis, all that stuff. So you can actually move it into full 360, kind of like on different planes. So if you click on that, just like so, you're going to actually have different orientations. You're going to have X, Y, Z, and then the orientation at regular, right? So what I would do, just to make sure if you change anything, just at the end of this frame here is actually, exactly where it needs to be. Just keyframe it right now, right? All of them, just because. Even opacity. So I'm going to do, I'm going to bring it back all the way to the bottom. So just so you can see that what's going to be happening here, if I were to change the Y-axis here, you'll see it's going to obviously make it twist. So I definitely want to have a little bit of a twist. Z-axis is going to obviously just kind of like almost like flip it and turn it and whatnot, right, on that axis there. And then X is going to be more of less like kind of like a bit of a, tilt forward, right, kind of thing, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just say, well, I'm just going to show you what I'm going to do at the bottom, because you won't be able to see it. You just have to have the box for reference. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make it like the Y-axis just twist a little bit, right? So it's going to have this nice little sort of twist to like a front facing, right? And as well as a little bit of the X-axis to kind of have it push forward toward us, right? And then the Z just to kind of like, just give it a little bit of a different angle. So that's all I'm going to basically doing right around, let's going to say like maybe, we definitely wanted to start before it actually is seen. So about 30 frames here is exactly where the I guess the pop-in of the logo is going to be happening here. So that's how I'm going to do it right now. So Y is first. I'm going to have that twist. So what's going to happen here is when it comes up, right, it's going to twist in. right? So with that Y there, I'm going to kind of move this maybe to 20 frames for now. We can move it, you know, later on, but for now I'm going to have it at 20. So now that Y is done, I'm going to X, kind of have that little bit of twist there. And if you want to kind of copy these frames, or excuse me, these, like, I guess degrees, or you would say, or these intervals, you guys definitely can. It's honestly just kind of eyeballing and kind of what you want it to feel like. Z here, actually, let me change the orientation because I want it to have, like, something like this. So it's going to be like this and kind of like float in, you know, kind of this is the face of the logo kind of thing, right? So if I just show you, it'll fly in just like so kind of thing. It's a little bit different than mine. Also, what I would do is I'm going to actually spin it all the way. So I'm going to say this Y-axis, we're going to go even more. So I'm going to go toward the negative, so it's going to have a full rotation before it actually gets there. Oops, it didn't actually full rotate. Make sure we're like right there. There we go. Now we have a full rotation, right? So what's going to happen here is it's just going to have a nice just full rotation. It's going to look really cool when it flies in. This is just really simple stuff here. If you guys want to as well, and I would definitely suggest, it looks a little bit weird when it actually, which axis is that? That's making it look a little bit awkward. I think it's the X. I'm actually going to change the X to 0 because I don't know if I like how that kind of like stops. It's a little weird. What I'm actually going to do, see, you can see how like the end of the animation kind of feels very like sticky. It almost just feels like it doesn't really work too well. What I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to just take these keyframes here. So these, the ones that actually moved, I'm going to ease them. But for this, since I know basically at the end it's a little more, it's so bit, for when we did the fly in, it's a little bit slower and then quicker to finish the, I guess, the flying animation itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go the opposite way. I'm going to highlight these, right? And I'm going to go, hey, this is going to be a little bit faster, and this will be a little bit slower. I'm going to move this in a little bit, right? So what's going to happen here is that all those little twists and stuff like that will actually happen before the animation is basically done, because we're also messing with the time intervals from when, you know, it's basically finished, right? The little spins and whatnot. This might be a little bit too fast, definitely. So I'm going to go ahead and do is go back into the actual graph, go back and highlight this one here. I'm going to say, hey, this is a little bit too fast. Let's pull it a little more further back, right? I would say that's pretty good. It's not bad. I kind of want to move this forward though a little bit to kind of have a little more time for the actual spin to happen. I think that looks actually pretty good. So now that kind of like the whole like I guess the whole spinning part of this whole entire logo is basically done. I did actually do something pretty cool to kind of make it feel a little bit more kind of like I guess in motion, I would say. So what I basically did was I'm gonna go to the end of the keyframe here, which is basically that minute and a half, right? I'm gonna go up to this little pin drop here. I used this before my mascot animation tutorial and whatnot, but this right here, if I'm gonna click on the top of this with this actual tool selected, right? The puppet pin tool. I'm gonna select the top of the logo. It's gonna ask you to auto trace, right? And I go to the bottom of the logo, click on those two dots here. So what happens in here, this little mesh, excuse me, I don't know where they are. The meshes are right there. See the little puppet pins that I did? So this is the first one. Excuse me, this is the second one that's highlighted now. That yellow little kind of highlight. And then the second one here is now the actual first on the top, right? So basically these little two things actually act as keyframes as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and make sure, excuse me, as soon as you actually do the pin, it actually does create a, how do you say, oh my goodness, keyframe for you guys, right? So you can see these little dots here, that means it's activated already. So if I go back down over here, and I say, hey, I'm gonna actually mess around with the one on the bottom. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna kind of like scroll down here. I'm using space to kind of move around my actual canvas. And when I click, right, you can see how that grabs it, or you just want to use the tool right there. So basically, if I go back to around about 40 frames or so, on this second pin, so this is actually the first one right here, right? I'm going to take this here, and I'm going to stretch this further down. Now, while I'm stretching it further down, it's obviously going to go back into the, I guess, the middle of the logo itself, because that's what's already originally keyframed. So we made sure that was already keyframed at the end point. That's why I always, before I add something different and new, I always make sure that the keyframe is always at the end of our animation, right? Very simple kind of thing to remember. You won't have too much trouble about it. But as you guys kind of saw in a second, fit to 100%, when it goes in, since I brought it down, basically the bottom of the logo itself is kind of catching up to the top of the actual pin, or I would say the original orientation of the logo here. So it kind of feels like it's almost like lagging behind, but also feels like it's in motion kind of thing, right? It's like it's really quick and kind of like snappy, and I like that feel to it. Just waiting for this to render so you guys can see in full sort of its glory, I guess you would say. right? And there we go. So you can see how it kind of feels, but obviously I'm gonna have to ease this to be a little more faster in the beginning. So what we're gonna do is obviously right click on this, keyframe assistance, easy ease, go to our graph editor, which is this right here, top right bar, and I'm gonna go ahead and say, let's push this in here and bring this in over here, right? It's almost kind of like even on both sides, but it's definitely gonna finish a little bit quicker than we need. I want it to finish a little more quicker, which it's basically going to, right? There we go. So now the animation feels a little more better and more smoother in my opinion here. Yeah, this is definitely kind of what I wanted. That looks pretty good. Okay, so now that this is done, by the way, you can always tweak things, move things around if you guys want it to be a little more faster, if you guys wanted to bring it in a little bit further. I would say then you would have to probably want to mess around with the beginning frames as well, because it's obviously going to be a little bit weird, but I mean, this wouldn't look terrible as well if I moved it in. Right? Just wait for it to load. It's just a little bit awkward, right? But just obviously space your keyframes as good as possible. But last but not least would be the whole kind of what do you call it? The little part that we did here. I want to show you guys a little animation again, or I'll just go to my first composition here. So basically this white little screen kind of comes in. This white screen is actually an ellipse, basically a circle, and we use this really cool sort of warping twist motion to kind of have the circle kind of like look like it's almost like this fading past like weird warpy thing. I don't know, it looks pretty cool. But if I go to composition 2 here, what I'm going to do is I'm bringing that circle. So well, this PNG is now basically finished. You can lock it if you guys want to, because you don't have to really mess with it. And if you don't want to click on it again, you don't have to, right? I'm going to go to right click on this left hand side, go to new, go to shape layer. On this shape layer here, I'm going to go up to the top bar here, go to Ellipse Tool. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically make a pretty big circle, right? I'm going to make a pretty big circle, just about so. Basically that you know it's going to fit over the entire thing. Now to center it, all you have to do is right click, go to, not right click with the circle, right click with the movement tool here, the selection tool, right click on the actual circle, my apologies. Right click on the actual circle, go to transform, go to center in view, and then you'll see that it centers in view. It's supposed to center in view. Hold on. Can you transform center in view? Oh, the damn freaking thingamajigger's on the total opposite side. It's centering with the actual point right here. Why did it actually do that for me? I actually quite don't know why that happened. I wonder if I press Alt or something. What if I do it now when I went all the way back? I must have moved something. Center in view. Nope. Hold on. This is a quick little fix for me, honestly. Shape layer. I'm not actually too sure why that happened, but... Oh, I have to hold control. I see. So holding control and holding shift. I was doing the opposite. So in Photoshop, you have to hold alt and shift. So if you hold control and shift, that's what I'm actually holding right now. As you can see, if I let go of shift, it's going to not make a perfect circle. So holding shift makes a perfect circle. And holding control in After Effects actually keeps the orientation in the middle of the shape. That little, see that little, on the top left of my little, let me just let go really quick. This right here, right, is your anchor point. So holding control actually keeps it in the middle. And that's what I was holding the opposite. I was holding if I was in Photoshop. So that was my issue there. I was kind of like confused for a second. But luckily, we figured it out together. And that's actually a really cool little thing to know, just because it's going to be worth it. So when I click in the middle of the actual framing here and I hold control and alt, just make it big enough for it to kind of go over the canvas. And then to make sure it's in the middle, just right click, go to transform, and then go to center and view. See it move just a little bit if it needs to move, if it's not already in the middle, which is exactly what we want. Cool. So now what's going to happen here is the little thing that I actually use the effect, I actually use transition. So if you guys want to, you can go to like effects, you can go to transition when you select on the layer, excuse me, the shape layer, go to effect, you can go to transition, you can go to like, I think I used last tutorial, I used like jaws. And this one here has like a couple different things you can do. So if you want to say, hey, after the logo, the animation is done, by the way, this shape layer should be below the actual logo. Right, you can say that once this is done, no, excuse me, it should be above it, because this is our transition for it to actually fade. It can actually be anywhere you want, as long as the entire screen is full, but I would probably put it above it so it can kind of be like this really cool like wipe. You can honestly keep the logo in the middle if you want to, but what I ended up doing is kind of hiding the logo behind it, just simply because of just different, you know, different aesthetic reasons. If you find it that you want to put, let's say when you put the, let's just say the completion is done, right? right? You can have it like be a white screen, or you can have it be your logo just showing, and then after it goes away, you're gonna have to make sure you get rid of your logo as well prior to you have to do something with your logo to kind of get rid of it, right? So what I ended up doing was putting the actual shape layer above the logo, so I have to worry about doing an animation for the actual logo. Kind of like a little cheapy kind of way to do it, but it still looks pretty cool in my opinion. And if you had a different just like background besides a white background, you guys can use literally any little picture you want to make. That's of course 1920 by 1080p. So yeah, kind of just think about that for a little bit of a second and just kind of like know what I meant by that, hopefully. So under this content, excuse me, on the right of the word contents is add. So what I ended up doing is I went to add, I went to twist, I believe, and with twist here, if I click on it, right, go drop down, and your angle and your center is what you want to mess around with. So I'm going to bring my center to quite a bit of a very big sort of, I guess, a dramatic interval, right? I believe these are called intervals in After Effects. I should pretty much learn those key terms and whatnot. But when I bring my center intervals on my right hand side here, not this one on the left, but on the right hand side here, to let's just say like 800, just to say kind of like that's 80, but let's just say 800 just for the sake of I guess tutorial reasons, right? So if I brought it to 800 and then I move on my angle, you'll see that hold on, it's a little bit, oh, it's kind of like trying to load something, sorry. To mess around my angle, right, you can see this really cool sort of like kind of like bubbly theme going on here. It's actually kind of cool. You can see what it's doing. This twist is actually also in Photoshop, but what we want to do though is we want to have something kind of like, the angle might be a little bit too little. We're gonna have to go up to almost like 1100. This is definitely probably not like the most technical way of doing something like this, just for this like little animation thing here, but for the sake of kind of just making it look as cool as possible, this is what I ended up doing. So okay, perfect, this is what we want. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make sure you see how I'm moving the angle here, so I can wait till this white box here kind of gets rid of goes away. I'm gonna actually make this a different color then. Can I make this a different color? Well, yeah, I'll make it like green, just for the sake of the tutorial. Why not, right? I'm gonna get rid of that off of the once I know I have a pretty good center here, was what I'm talking about. So if you guys want to, you can use 1100. So when I'm moving this out, I want to move this outside of the canvas, just like so for now. Perfect. I'm going to go back to my Seso HQ PNG here, and I'm going to press U on my keyboard. It brings up all the keyframes. So what I want to do is I want to make sure that I start this at the 1.5. I probably could have known, but if you forgot for whatever reason, or maybe you didn't use 1.5 seconds as your sort of stopping animation for your logo design, you can press U on your keyboard to figure out where all the keyframes are. You can hide them as well with that same exact quick quick shortcut, right? So now this is done here, I'm gonna just go ahead and make sure I click center, my keyframing on the angle and the center, right? And I'm gonna go to 40, so 10 frames after, right? And then go to my angle here and say, hey, bring this back in, because we know if we bring it in, it's gonna basically make a full circle again. That's definitely what we want. So it's gonna be keyframes. So it's gonna go, hey, transition for our logo is done. Now we're gonna start our transition out. So it's gonna go like this, right? And then go 10 frames again. And then take your angle and just go the opposite way and get it rid of the canvas. Get it outside of the canvas. So it should probably be whatever number is for the beginning here, which is like 261. So negative 261, you can see it's really close to negative 261. You can just basically copy those numbers around, just put a minus in front of it. But either way, move it towards the left this time. So you're going to see is basically it fly in, or the green come in, and then come back out. So what you want to do is, while this, as soon as it gets covered here, right, you see how the logo is still there at the end. You don't want it to be there at the end because you want it to be disappeared and whatnot, right? So what you want to do is right when it gets covered here, what we ended up doing before, right, was to keyframe the opacity here. What I'm going to do is right when it gets covered, I'm going to make another keyframe at 100%, right, just like so. And what's going to happen here, I'm going to go 1 frame forward, literally 1 frame. So scroll 1 frame forward, take your opacity, lower down to 0, because it no longer needs to be there at the end of this sort of like part of the video here, or the animation here. So what's going to happen here is, hey, logo's still there, logo's no longer there, kind of thing. So that's when your other screen's going to be now in the actual background, or I guess in your foreground or whatnot, after the transition screens are done, right? So it's a very, very kind of simple little thing, animation here. It's actually really cool. You can definitely substitute, like I said, use a lot of different things. Like I said, I personally would try to go to transition, use literally any one of these things as your background transition, because you don't have to do what I did for this video here. This is just something cool that I just thought was like, you know, kind of just fun to do, just to do for the actual background going away. But the whole point of the video for me personally is kind of just doing this really cool little logo animation part where it just kind of like flies in outside of the canvas, comes right in the middle. I think it's pretty cool, so I'm gonna just wait for it to kind of render out. Alright guys, so for some reason my last clip Literally After Effects crashes like maybe once every half year for me. It happens to be right at this very moment in time. Sucks, but just so you guys know, the composition 1 for the actual tutorial that I actually did, or the tutorial preview that I showed you guys in the beginning, is literally the same exact thing that I did for composition 2, and I saved it beforehand, so that's perfectly fine. It's the same exact thing we did for the actual tutorial, right? But what I think I forgot to do is show you guys this. I believe I said before the last clip is you should have your angle for the circle, right? The circle to kind of wipe by. I believe I had the keyframes here at 40 and 60, and when I rendered that out, if you were to render this out, excuse me, you'll see that this is a little bit too fast, right? You see how the back on the back is a little bit too fast? It just doesn't give you enough time to kind of just like, you know, fully kind of understand what's happening in that background. So make sure you guys understand that your angle for the little circle stuff, the animations that stop, where it stops, excuse me, it should actually be the end of your composition. So if it's 2 seconds and whatnot, make sure those last keyframes are not where they were, not 40 and 50. Make sure this is going to be at 2 seconds. And this one here is in the middle of both of the when it starts and when it ends. So that'll be about 45 frames, which is right here. Take these dots, put them there. That way that white background is no longer going to be like really awkwardly like too fast, right? Which also means for the last clip in that sense, where we put our orientation, or excuse me, our opacity for when our logo goes away, you probably have to move that a little bit forward. You probably see that, right? Now that that's basically done, to actually put it into your render queue, you want to go to composition, go to add to render queue, or press Control M on your keyboard, right? And then I've kind of went through a couple different kind of things that I ended up like. For some reason my AVI files in OBS, and this might be something like publicly known, but excuse me, when I do a transition, it was kind of like glitchy. Like once every like 20, I was just kind of testing it a lot. Once every 20, it kind of like disappears. It doesn't appear, and then it just takes like a weird, awkward delay for the actual scenes to actually transition. The way I kind of figured it out is kind of QuickTime's a lot better for this. You know, kind of a little stinger, which is actually the transition. What do you call it? The transition option when you go to OBS. So what you want to do is you want to change your render settings. Just keep it on best times. Excuse me, best settings. And what you want to do is you want to go to Output Module Lossless, or you want to click on this and go to your Format, and then go to QuickTime, right? Excuse me. After you go to QuickTime, you want to go to your channels, change it from RGB to RGB plus alpha. What that will do is make sure you guys remember the transparent background in the beginning of the video. Obviously, you want, or the beginning of your transition, you just want your logo to fly and nothing else to be there, no background, anything like that. You want to make sure you have plus alpha enabled. That'll make sure that your transition background it's so weird. You want to say transition, but I mean transparent background is still there. Okay, so make sure you gotta have that selected. Press OK. Render it out, all that good stuff. Now, the hard part, which I feel like is just because sometimes people don't understand this part. If I go into OBS, I'm going to be using OBS Studio for this example here. You guys just literally just find out where your transition settings are. Mine right here for the OBS Studio is going to be right here, right? So I'm going to click on this, and what's going to happen here is you want to go to Add a Transition. Your type, you just call this, I don't know, like logo transition, right? Logo trans, right? You type. From cut, you want to change it to stinger, which I said is the option we're going to be using in today's video. So your duration, we're going to change it before you do anything else. Change your time, excuse me, your transition point time from time, point type from time to frame, right? Because that's just going to be easiest for you guys to understand. So really quickly, quick little lesson. This is 50 frames. This is 60, not 100. So if you were to understand and say, hey, this right here is going to be, my duration time is 200 frames. It's not. Make sure you guys understand that's 120 because we obviously put 60 FPS plus it goes 50, 60, not 100. Just know that. You're going to be like, Seso, obviously. You'll have no idea how many people from last video that I did for my transition settings be like, it doesn't sync up, it doesn't line up. Count. Use your brain, okay? So, with that being said, if I were to go to this duration time, like I said, it should be 120. So if I go over here, duration time, 120 frames, right? Video file. I'm going to open this up for a second. Go to here, transition number 2, I believe it was called. Right, so my transition point, that point is where the full screen turns white, so it allows you to have that, of course, that's where the transition happens, right? The screen, the next scene is then applied, right? Right behind that white background. So I find out where that is, which is right here, is exactly right here, when it turns full white. So that would be 60 plus 40 is 105, right? So I'm gonna go here and say, hey, my transition point is 105 frames. Press OK. Press OK again. So what happens here, if I switch frames now, you'll see, you know, logo comes in, white background. Right when that like little second hits where the frame is actually perfectly white is exactly when it switches, and it feels very just honestly really good. So if I just switch it again, right here, and it just looks really cool. I'm not gonna lie to you, this is something for sure I'm probably gonna do in the future for like another theme war video, where I kind of like do something with the background, do something with my logo. I don't know, I'm really having a lot of fun personally in the whole motion design graphics part. I do apologize that I had a weird cut in the beginning of the, or so the little end of the video, because the freaking OBS, it's not OBS, After Effects crashed, but we're all good to go. Hopefully you guys enjoyed today's video here today. I'll probably do something probably a little bit different for the secret download. I don't know if you guys want the file, but maybe I'll just like write down the settings for you guys to just kind of have, or have the settings at least there for you guys to have. Just give you the project file and stuff like that. So hope you guys enjoyed today's video here today. Don't forget, 200 likes on the video equals a secret down below, like I just said that, okay? Also, make sure you guys check out my Selfie, selfie.com/SesoHQ, to make sure you guys, if you want to go ahead and purchase it before Monday, which would be, 26. So before the 26th, if you guys are watching this after this doesn't really matter, but it's still worth the $30. But right now the everything pack is for $15. If you guys are gonna purchase it, it'll be pretty cool. And yeah, you're definitely gonna love it. I promise that. Especially for the money. Okay. Anyway, love you guys. Talk to you guys later. Seso HQ out. Do not forget to keep smiling, stay positive, and stay freaking productive, guys. Later. What a scuff video, but it's still pretty good. Not gonna lie. Okay, I'm out. I'm leaving.